Hello one and all, welcome to the Math Magic Show. In this one we're going to answer a little puzzle. The graph below shows f prime of x. How many relative maxima does f of x have? Now, how do we answer this kind of question? Because that's the graph of f prime, it's a derivative. So first let's just review the concept of a maximum in general. Take a look at what I mean here. So it's basically like a peak on a graph. Now on the left side we have a positive slope, and then on the right side of that peak you would have a negative slope. And at the peak itself, the slope is equal to 0. So that's just a review of the concept of a maximum. How do I make use of this with the graph of f prime of x to actually find and answer the question? That is, how many relative maxima does f of x have when all you have is the graph of f prime? You got to observe and remember this key piece of information. F prime is 0, where the maximum occurs. And then on top of it, to the left of it, as you can see, it's a positive slope. To the right, it's a negative slope. So when you look at f prime of x, you got to answer these kinds of questions. Look at this first point right here. At -4, you see that f prime is 0, because this represents the graph of f prime, so it's 0 in that location. If you grab a value slightly to the left of the blue dot, you see that f prime of x is greater than 0 because it's above the x-axis. And if you grab a value slightly to the right of the blue dot, so you see that f prime of x is less than 0 because, as you can see, it's below the x-axis. So the left and right here mean to the left of the blue point and to the right of the blue point. So what is this telling us? What this is telling us is the following, that -4 qualifies as a value of x that represents the fact that on the original f of x, which is not even shown here, as a relative max. Because as you can see, this graph of f prime confirms that. Okay, let's look at the next possible value. So that would be at -2. Let's see here. So you see to the left of that -2, f prime of x is less than 0 because it's below the x-axis, whereas to the right of it, as you can see, it's f prime of x greater than 0 because it's above. So now this part here doesn't qualify. Why not? Well, look at the basic definition of things. Remember, and notice that this one here, and it doesn't qualify exactly because, as you can see, while it's true that at -2 back here in the picture, f prime is equal to 0, to the left of that it's less than 0, it's below the x-axis, and to the right of it it's above the x-axis, it's more than 0. So that breaks what we need from this definition right here, which is that the slope, in other words, f prime to the left has to be positive and to the right has to be negative. We don't have that at -2. So then we look at the next point. Take a look at the +1 itself. So again, take a look. Slightly to the left of +1, f prime of x is greater than 0. It's above the x-axis. And slightly to the right of it, as you can see, is below the x-axis. In other words, f prime of x is less than 0. So does that match what we need? Well, take a look. Right? Remember, the basic concept of a max is that the positive slope is on the left, negative slope on the right. And that is represented here by looking at the values of the derivatives. So they match. You see that? On the left side, f prime of x greater than 0, positive slope. On the right side, f prime of x less than 0, negative slope, in other words. Okay, so that checks. And let's look at the last one. So when I do that one, take a look. To the left of the +2 there, f prime of x is less than 0 because it's below the x-axis. And to the right of it, f prime of x is greater than 0 because it's above the x-axis, which means that at +2 itself, that does not qualify as the location of a maximum on the invisible f. So in other words, what I would conclude based on this is the following, that f of x has two maxima and they occur specifically at -4 and then +1, just the way you see it here. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has shown you something interesting. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video.